things happen in life. Even I can't control it at times. It's hard. It took a point in my life where if anything in my life is not let me do what the fuck I want to do, go. Get the fuck out. I'd never traveled up until I was 25. The first place I do travel to is Switzerland. Yeah,
That is a very, very different place from
yeah, trust me.
Florida.
Like, you are my life partner, and this is the person that I'm having sex with tonight. But also, I mean, you may come too. Maybe you don't want to, but also, like, just this is what's happening.
Welcome to today's episode of Getting to Know You. I'm your host, Cameron Edward Benton, and on today's episode, I have the great pleasure of introducing you to Paul of the Wild, otherwise known as Paul Knopf. So I met Paul while we were both in line during Okeechobee 2022, which is a music festival out in Florida. And we were connecting because it was Paul's first rave, and it had only been my first rave a few months before that. And he was about to take a pretty intense journey, as you will share in this episode. And I really wanted to interview Paul because he paralleled so much of my own journey throughout these last couple of years. Both of us in our early 30s, figuring out life and kind of reclaiming a lost adolescence that we didn't really get to have for a number of different reasons, whether that's growing up as a millennial man in our current day and age, or whether that is because of religion or you name it. But for whatever reason, we were both kind of disconnected from the things that really lit us up and brought us joy on a day-to-day basis. And I think one of the messages that Paul teaches us is that it's never too late to start living from your heart, from your joy of joys, and living a life that is meant for you, that is possible for you, that is of your wildest and beyond your wildest dreams. Paul is a brilliant man. He's an incredible coder. He loves to kite surf. He loves to just live life to its absolute fullest. And it was my absolute pleasure getting to interview him. So without further ado, here is getting to know Paul of the Wild. So on today's show, we have Paul Knopf. He is a software developer, a kiteboarder, music lover, raver, all-around partier, and an incredible dude. And we met each other through music festivals, and it's been an absolute blast. Had a really cool synchronistic experience that we will get into in the show in a bit. But Paul, thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Thanks for
man.
having me. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be a blast. How's everything been going?
Yeah, it's been going great. Since we saw it Oki, I'm back plugged into the real world, but I'm still riding that vibe, still enjoying myself. Back to taking care of things, remodeling the house. Day to day things, but still, enjoying myself, loving
Very
those.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think last time we spoke, or last time I saw you, were starting to do kiteboarding. Can you talk a little bit about that? What is kiteboarding? How does that work?
Yeah. So I recently got into it. I I'm super addicted to it now. It's definitely going to be a big part of my life going forward. Um, yeah, it's essentially a big kite that goes up in the air and it pulls you like a sail. And there's so many different things you can do with it, right? You can twin tip, and that's a lot of fun. Basically, just do jumps and tricks and stuff. But I have a new board coming in that's a hydrofoil that allows me to kite, but instead of being on top of the water carving, on the wave,
Mm-hmm.
you're above the waves, and then there's a mast and a foil underneath. So you have no drag, smooth
Mm-hmm.
ride, just up there gliding on top of the water. Look forward to getting to
Wow.
that soon. But yeah, I'm super addicted to that right now. I built a bot on my website, peakingup.com/lit, and basically what it does is it goes out to all these weather stations, and for each different spot that I kiteboard at, there's different wind conditions that have to be there. And I built a bot that goes out and looks for those perfect conditions in each spot and organizes them in chronological order so that I can go to one spot and be like, all right, well, what am I doing Wednesday? What am I doing Friday? Saturday? Okay, I can go to one of these
Wow.
places, and this is what's going on with the wind and stuff. And yeah, I've been yeah, I mean that's kind of like my schedule too. Like if people want to schedule things to do something, I'm like, all right, just go to the website and go around what you see up there because I'll be doing those things.
I love that. I love that. It's a
Actually,
great.
the when we met at Oki, that was actually also my first festival that I've ever went
Mhm.
to.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of why I wanted to chat with you, because I don't remember if you remember where we were at the time, but like it was kind of like this, we had this kind of parallel journey at the time, because it wasn't my first festival. It was like my third, my third electronic festival, and then I've had Coachella like twice before then. But it was my first of my festivals where I was going on this journey last year, going to 50 concerts in a year. And I met you, and you were like, "This is my first festival, and this was my first time doing Molly."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And yeah, so can you talk a little bit about that experience? Because that was fucking awesome.
Yeah, the first band I experienced it with was 2 Feet, and I'm a big fan of 2 Feet. I don't know if you're familiar with
Mm,
them, but
mm,
uh, just listening to them for the first time, it was the moment it hit me, listening to them with everyone else, right? Like it really allowed me, for the first time, actually allowed me to feel confident in myself.
mm,
Because I don't know if you get the vibe a little bit, but especially when I'm first meeting someone, like it's really hard to find myself being comfortable.
mm,
And Molly was, I found it, and I found myself needing less of it to get into the state, at least while I was out there. Like I was able to ride
mhm.
that high, but it really allowed me to just be weird, right? Like just be
Yeah.
fucking weird, and everyone else is weird, and just do weird shit, and just go, like what is and it's not fucking weird, and it
Mhm,
allowed me to, be weird, essentially. And yeah, I remember too when it first hit me too. I was like, man, this is fucking awesome. All right, we're
mhm.
we're, we're doing this more. And when I was in the crowd, I was walking around, talking to people,
Mhm.
enjoying people, and I remember often I would tell people like, "Yeah, it's my first festival. Yeah, this is the first time doing
Mhm.
Molly. Like 5 minutes ago was the first time it fucking hit me. Yo, what's up?
Mhm.
And like
Yeah,
their reaction every time I would tell someone that like their jaw would drop like, "Rah!" Just a lot of people like, "Go to the rail too." I was like, I did do that too. I tried to like, all right, you guys, I'm going to the rail, and I went up there and I almost got in a fight with someone because apparently
yeah.
it's a fucking territorial nightmare up there. Which, being now, I consider myself a headbanger now. Like I
Mhm.
come from a metal background. I love heavy fucking music, and I love just my entire fucking body moving to whatever fuck is fucking going on.
Yeah.
And so I'm that being my first festival was also my first time really getting into EDM
Mhm.
and discovering all the heavy artists. And now I'm like, even on my local spot, I'm looking out for any heavy guys, and I'm going there early, rail camping, and it's a lot of fun. You meet some people up there too. There's benefits up there
Mhm.
too. Like, for example, if you're up there all day, you get to put your shit over the rail and keep it safe.
Mhm.
And at the very end, everyone leans over the rail, grabs whatever, throws it up, and like, whose is this? And I don't know. There's like just like, hey, no one's gonna steal other people's shit. Just throw it up,
Yeah.
grab your shit. Like, I don't know. It's a fun vibe up there for sure. And I probably, and I get this often when I'm up there too, and I fucking live for it too. I go
Mm.
super fucking hard, like crazy
Yeah.
fucking hard. Like, I know when we met up at Ella Stream was playing.
Mhm.
They're not super heavy, but I still
Mhm.
like Ella Stream a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if you've caught my vibe up there. I was enjoying myself, but
Oh
if you
yeah.
saw if you saw me during Solon King or Excision, or
Mm.
there's a bunch of other bands I like too, but yeah, if you saw me there, you would be like, "Damn, dude, he will have a fucking heart attack up there." And sometimes it
Wow.
gets like that too. Like, and it's funny is, I come from a metal background. I play guitar, I
Mhm.
play drums and whatnot, and I like heavy stuff. And I I actually do that by myself as a workout. Like, in this
Mm.
room, you can't see it, but there's a mirror here, and I have a sound box, one of those expensive speakers,
Mhm.
the Bluetooth speakers, and I will legit turn that fucking shit up and just dance around like a fucking bad man in my
Mm.
room by myself. It's
That's
just,
awesome.
I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
I'm honestly very much the same. I like things with a bit more color, like more like Ellis Dream or Grizz or those kinds of guys compared to the like super heavy headbangers like Sullivan or um although I'm a huge Excision fan as well and a big Subtronics fan. Like those are some of my faves, but I like
Yeah.
guys with a little bit more melodic kind of components to it.
Hmm.
Um but yeah, man, I am the same way, and that's honestly a lot of how EDM and the festival community like really changed my life in the same way, where it was like this part of myself that I guess didn't feel safe to be let out. was allowed to be there, right? And I
Yep.
could be out there and just like, just shake my ass as much as I wanted to or dance however I wanted to and crazy. And it would be funny because I would go to these shows like alone out here and then I'd be like, oh well, I'm not really like meeting anybody or whatever. That's fine. And then I would just like be dancing just like as hard as I wanted to. And people would be like, oh wow, you're so cool, or like whatever it would be. And I'd be like, I'm just like dancing like a crazy person. Like all I'm doing
Yeah,
is
that's
just like dancing I want to. And then people are get drawn to it, which is the irony of it, right? When you just
yep.
kind of like let go.
People like people who having fun.
Yeah.
There's something contagious about looking at someone else enjoy themselves, right? You wind up
Mm.
enjoying yourselves as well. It's contagious.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a beautiful way to put it. Um, so yeah, well, let's. I'd love to dive in with this with you. I know that you said that you do software, right? That's like your jam.
Yep.
Yeah.
From like super early on in high school, I was building personal websites for myself. There was a game that I played a lot called Wolfenstein Enemy
Hmm.
Territory, and I built a little bot that works with an API they had, and the moment I dug into that and started building websites and working with things like that, I got bit by this creative bug that I felt like a god that I could do whatever the fuck I
Yeah.
want, and that
Hmm.
bug never left me, and I got better and better at what I do, and now I'm still doing it and loving it. I like building shit. I
That's
always
awesome.
tell people I like building big, complicated, massive, you know, impressive, just big ass shit. I like building
Mm.
shit, you know.
So what kind of like software do you design? Do you do like video game stuff, or do you do like stuff for just like software, or just as long as it's complex and interesting, that's what you do?
Yeah, a majority of my career I spent doing. So I started my career on the web side of things. Just doing front end work. Standard websites. I don't know if you're familiar with Coleman, the camping gear. But
Oh
I
yeah.
w- Yep, but I was involved in architecting and building that website. If you go to
Hmm.
Coleman.com, that's large, my child, and
Wow.
yep, and there's a few other websites. But I then transitioned to a more lower level embedded work, specifically Linux,
Mm.
embedded devices, working with drivers. What I essentially developed was these small video recorders that they were video recorders, but they did a little bit more to integrate into the hospital network. And they were for surgeons. They had little endoscope cameras that
Hmm.
videotape and start and stop recording, and they just supported that workflow, and that's
Wow.
what I developed for a bit. Now I'm still in the medical industry, but I'm
Mm.
doing revenue lifecycle management. Essentially, I write software that helps a team manage the revenue of a hospital, right? And
Oh wow.
that's a lot. And I don't understand the entire domain. I'm really only focused on a small subset of it. But
Hmm.
um, but you can basically think of it as like I'm a hospital. I want to start serving patients, and there's a whole bunch of stuff with billing insurance companies and that kind of stuff that I don't want to deal with, and they'll come to us at turnkey and say, "Hey, I have a hospital, support me," and
Hmm.
yeah, that, that's what I do currently.
Wow. Wow. And were you before you we met at the festival and you had your first Molly experience? And I'm going to preface this question with, since I've known you, I have seen you as this very, for lack of a better word, like wild human beings, like lovely, like life in your eyes, like seeing you skateboard, through that, just like I think we were like in a like an all body suit or something at one point,
Yep.
and then just having a great time. And then your Instagram is Paul of the Wild, and you just every time you're on there you're just rocking out, like playing guitar, just like having this like blast of a life. And I'm curious, like how much of that has been since that first initial Molly and festival experience, and like how much of that was still like there in your life before.
So that's a good question. It kind of gives me goosebumps because it kind of brings me back to like where it did all start, which was around that time.
Mm.
So what happened is I went through a period in my life where I didn't recognize my value,
Mm.
meaning that I had a lot to offer the world, people, just in general. I have a lot to offer, and I'm, you know, I,
Mhm.
I like myself, you know.
Yeah.
And early on in life, I don't know, I'm trying to choose my words carefully because although my ex won't see this, it would suck for her to hear the way that I truly feel, it would suck
Sure.
for her to hear it the way that I would really like to express it, or how I like to express it normally with people.
Yeah.
But essentially, what happened was I was confused early on, and I was in a relationship that, for the longest time, I felt guilted into and trapped. And I very much wasn't meant to be with her, meaning she was like a very depressed, dark, bitter,
Mm-hmm.
secluded, angry, just totally not my vibe, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
100% like me where I'm at today. Like if this person came across and was like trying to like nibble at me, I'd be like, "Whoa, what the fuck? You la 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 la." It's just like yeah, like it
Yeah.
wouldn't work.
Not a
But
fit.
yeah, she was very good at catfishing, right? Like when we first met, she was a pothead, right? I smoked weed, and slowly that turned into like like she basically did what she needed to bring me in. And the moment I was dependent upon her a little bit emotionally, like she started like just clamping in the claws, and
Wow.
it was, it sounds like stupid, like, the way I'm describing is like, well, you honestly know better now, or at least you didn't know then. Well, yeah, I
Mm.
didn't know then. I didn't have,
Right.
the support system around me to, stop me from doing what I did. And, you know, anyways, I lived for a really long time in a way that wasn't myself,
Mm.
which there's a lot of regrets in there, right? Like up
Mm.
until a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I haven't been living myself, and now I have been, and it's been great. You know, there's times where I sit back and there's regrets that like I wasn't able to do this early on. Where would I be if I was truly able to be myself early on, when I had a good job, good money, be able to do what I
Mm-hmm.
want? I'd be able to do what I'm doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right now I'm kind of living in this mode where, um, I'm I like to think of myself as like I'm living in. Have you ever seen the movie Office Space?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm living that right now. Like I literally do what I want at all times. I don't worry about shit. I don't lock my doors. I don't lock my car. I don't do shit. I literally just do whatever the fuck I want to do at all times, and everything just kind of works out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm having fun doing it. And I forgot where I'm going with this.
So I think the original question was just asking about kind of like what your sort of where you were at pre festivals, pre Molly,
Yeah.
pre that first initial experience to kind of my really larger question is like how did that, shift you and how did that kind of open you up to this new version of yourself, or like I would say like expressed version of yourself, where you are able to kind of live from a place of like what you love and just trusting yourself and seeing your value, because it sounds like you were in a pretty rough spot before, and now through this past year you're in a completely different spot.
Yep. I mean, it started again after I left my ex,
Mm-hmm.
and after that, I reached out to some old friends of mine, and slowly but surely, those friends turned out to be really good friends. And it started off with, "All right, I'll go with you guys to parties, and you guys are dancing, but I'm going to be in the corner because I'm not." It's kind of weird, like I'm going to start dancing, and you guys are going to look at me and like wonder, "Why is he
Yeah.
doing? Like, why is he being weird and stuff?" But now it is the exact opposite. Like I'm always dancing, dragging them into shit. And
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, it was really me letting go. It took a point in my life where I was able to say, if anything in my life is not let me do what the fuck I want to do, go, get the
Yeah.
fuck out. And I started doing that anywhere and everywhere I work, relationships, people, friends, literally everything. If there's any kind of just negative, I felt like uh, yeah, if I felt like I couldn't be myself, it wasn't for me. And there was up until a year and a half ago, 2 years, going to festivals, meeting other people of like mind, and it took that to finally, for my for me myself, to really kind of recognize my value, recognize
Mm-hmm.
my, just be myself, really start to discover myself.
Yeah.
Long story
Yeah.
short.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, man, I resonate with that a lot. Like I went through this last year of going to ended up going to 54 concerts, and most of them were EDM. And I went to I think 7 or 9 festivals like in that process, and I feel very much the same way. I mean, I had started to discover and say a lot more of myself, but almost it was almost like this full circle experience I had seeing you at Okeechobee and seeing other friends like the Tide Pods there at Okeechobee, where it was like I like had all this growth and saw this stuff, and there's still like almost a little bit of part of me was like, oh, are these people, do they actually like really like me, or do I care, do I, who am I actually, cool, or am I just weird? Am I this like older dude, right? It's like I'm 30 fucking 4 dancing my ass off with like a bunch of like, oh, so many people are like what, 23, 24 around, year round, and it's like am I
Yeah.
just like this weird old dude? And it's like, no, like these, you're actually just loved for who you are, and the more that you are who you are, the more that those people want to be around you.
Yep.
And it's this really, really cathartic experience. And I've done a lot of like, personal growth therapy, like a lot of other kind of stuff like that. And for me, it's almost like this is uh, like the playground where you actually get to like integrate those experiences, because you can do all the, journaling and like affirmations or like all that kind of stuff. And I'm not, poo-pooing any of that kind of stuff. But if you're not like giving yourself real world experience to actually like validate those things, um, it kind of always just lives in like theoretical space. And then like when you're in these spaces, with how people are, and they're so loving and so accepting of all the different lovely weird parts of you, um, and like gives you this space to be able to really anchor in that feeling of like, I am awesome who I am, and I don't have to be anybody else.
Yeah, it sounds like we're very similar. You said, up in, or you said last year you've been to 50 plus festivals. Is it? Were you in
50,
a?
50 plus concerts, not festivals, but 50 plus concerts. Yeah.
Yeah, was there a similar situation where like you weren't able to, like, why weren't you able to be that before, up
Yeah.
until a year ago?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I grew up really conservative Christian in my life. I had a lot of really challenging things happen in my life. Like my dad sexually abused both my sisters. He's in prison for that now, in 21 to life.
Fuck.
And so that was like very traumatizing for where I was at. And then it's been like a lot of growth, plus a lot of stuff that comes with being raised very conservatively, and all those kinds of things, of just a lot of shame, a lot of um, you know, dealing with all that kind of stuff. And so, in short, and then I had grown through a lot of those things. And then COVID happened, right? And I was kind of like, oh, cool. I'm like having healthy dating for the first time. I'm like meeting a lot of people and having a lot of fun. Moved to Seattle. And then 3 months later, the pandemic hit. And I was just like inside, like playing video games for a year and a half, which was honestly awesome. Like I loved, like honestly, the first probably year of COVID, where it's just like, all right, like I wish I was like doing other things, but like I'm just like playing video games, I'm having a great time, I'm making good money, like all this kind of stuff. And it was like a little bit after that, and I was just like kind of going like stir crazy. And then I got invited to um, not quite invited, but I ended up like reaching out to this couple who had like an extra ticket for Base Canyon out here in
Nice.
Washington. Yeah, and I had never been to a rave before. I didn't know what any of the music was going to be like. I listened to a couple of samples. I was like, I just don't care. Like, I just need to go to a festival, because I'd been to Coachella a couple times, and I knew I wanted to do more of that. I was like, I just need to go to a festival, like be around these kinds of people, have fun, do that kind of thing. Went with them, and by the end of that experience, I was just like, this is fucking amazing, and the people here are incredible, and I just like want more of this. And so then I went to EDC Vegas like a month later, when I had a vacation lined up, and just soloed that and had a blast there, and then kind of cried the first day, just like all this catharsis and stuff. And then by the end of it, I was just like, I want to like do as much of this as I can. Like I didn't get a chance to. I never partied in high school, or barely partied at all in college. I didn't do any of that stuff. Right. I've always just been very professional and working and doing all these things. And then at the end of EDC, I was just like, I want to kind of make up for lost time. Like I'm just gonna go as hard as I can for like 1 year. And I was like, all right, let's like a show a week. Or I was like, okay, it's about 50, gives myself like a little 2 week breather. And then just like, wrote down all the festivals I wanted to go to, made a spreadsheet, like figured out how I was going to financially do it, just like all that stuff. And I was just like, all right, I'm doing this. And I was like, I know it's going to get hard at some point, and I don't have to say notice certain things, but like at the end of it, I think it'll be worth it. And yeah, now I'm writing a book about the whole thing, and started this podcast honestly all out of that experience, because I was just like, there was so much I wanted to share about the magic of these experiences and what they bring to people. Because I think for me, growing up as a Christian, like honestly, like I find the Christianity that I believed in as a kid, like this idea that people like love you whoever you are, and like that there's this thing, like that's what I find at a festival. That's what I find
Uh,
in the EDM community, and that's so it touches my heart in a really special way.
Would you still consider yourself a Christian? Would you?
That's a great question. I would, in short, yes. I would consider myself, partly because I don't know that there's really a way that I could ever actually get rid of it, even if I fully wanted to. So, like, I think because I was raised in it at such a young age and so was so deeply in it that it's like a part of my psyche, no matter what.
Yeah,
And I also think, like, for me, the idea of being a Christian, as in like living in the way that, like, Christ's example, for example, like, if that's the intention, then that has always been like my intention, to like treat people with kindness, to you know be as loving as I can be, to treat others how I wish I was treated, like all of those things. I think from that place, yes, from a place of like, do I believe what like probably 90% of Christians believe from like a religious or doctrinal standpoint? No, but from those deeper things to me, then yes, yeah,
yeah. So you're more spiritual than religious, and right,
yeah,
yeah,
definitely,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And that's kind of my problem with religion is it's there's a lot of that judgmental, forcing
hmm
people to be someone other than themselves. Like that.
hmm
There's just a lot of condemnation, and like I don't know, it's a lot of that, a lot of dogma, and the people that are religious that I vibe with are more spiritual than anything. Like
hmm
they're not necessarily like quote unquote. If you're a Christian, you probably shouldn't be really supportive of gay people or trans people or
hmm
something. But I gotta imagine you're one of those don't give a fuck, be yourself. If you love
yeah,
yourself, I love you kind of thing. But
yeah,
and that's the way it should be. I love driving by and seeing Christian churches with the signs out there that say some kind of inclusive thing. Just
hmm
love that.
yeah, yeah. I think it's an important. Yeah, I mean, I went to like a pretty like liberal Christian school, which helped me kind of break down a lot of my belief systems, and question everything, because they encourage questions, and basically they can encourage like thinking for yourself, as long as you could back up whatever you thought. And that helped me to allow to really just like slowly over time unpack everything that I've believed about, not just about religion or Christianity, but about my entire life. What about you? Were you raised like religious or spiritual, or have any background in that?
Uh,
Or were you kind of just atheist, or?
yeah, so I was raised Christian, but early
Hmm.
on, I went away from that. There was a moment in my life where I want to say I was 16 or 17 years old that I had this period in my life that really it happened within maybe a month, but there was a period where I really felt like I had this strong desire. Like I felt there was a growing thing inside me that felt like, hey, I was born into this game, right? Like I'm in a game now, and
Hmm.
everyone's trying to figure out how to play it. No one's playing it well, but someone out there knows how to play it. And I was
Hmm.
searching real hard to figure out
Hmm.
like just what is this world I'm in, and like how do I win at this game. And I was looking and looking and looking, and I came across this book called Children of the Law of One.
Hmm.
uh, I have a copy of it here. I was going to show it, but
Sure.
it is it's a little bit new agey, right? And to be honest, I was drawn early on to that new age side of things. But what really stayed with me was the Eastern philosophy. Um, Not necessarily Buddhism, although Buddhism I would say is probably the less dogmatic. It's got less of a caked on human experience. It's
Hmm.
more of a philosophy than it is a religion. It's more of like a way of living. And that there was a period in my life where like I discovered that. And
Hmm.
early on, like me being young and immature myself, I was like, all right, now I'm going to go to Tibet and become a monk, and like
Hmm.
I'm going to win at this game. But life got a hold of me, and just kind of I simmered down and really started coasting into life with that new
Hmm.
mindset. And over the course of that month, and really like over the course of a year, but like there was just a really formative time where I read that book, and I read that book 3 times. I swear to
Mm.
God, I first read that page and the book was written for me. Like during that
Wow.
month, I opened a page and the book was written for me. I even go back and read it today, and still
Wow.
I hear the echoes of it. And from that time, just like things started happening in my life. People dropped away, people came in, everything just like I felt like I was young, right?
Hmm.
And just, I didn't know what was going on. Then all of a sudden everything just kind of clicked. And I
Yeah.
just
How
felt it.
old were you?
16 or 17. I was in high school at
Okay.
the time.
Oh wow.
Yep,
So really really young.
yep,
Um, so you were raised Christian, then you were kind of like, were your parents like really religious? Where you grew up in like a very religious household, or was it just kind of like Christianity, you go to church, that kind of thing?
yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
more
It
or
was
less.
just like,
Okay.
yeah, like almost like a guilted into that because, everyone else, like that's how we be good people. Yeah, we're Christians. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
all those
Are
things.
you?
But not to say my family wasn't, they weren't nice and respectful and golden ruley.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
No, for
yeah.
sure. What part of the country were you raised in?
I was actually born and raised in Sarasota area, specifically Bradenton, um,
Where
but
is? Sorry, where? What state is that? I'm not familiar.
Florida.
Oh,
So
Florida. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Tampa, Florida. Are you familiar with where that is? It's a little bit south of there.
Yeah.
And yeah, born and raised here. I'm probably as Floridian as it gets.
Mm.
Up until I was 25, I've actually never left more than 2 hours of this
Wow.
little spot. Yeah, like you don't hear that very often, but yeah, didn't travel very much, until I got a job that allowed me to travel, which is
Mm.
also kind of a funny story. So I'd never traveled up until I was 25. The
Mhm.
first place I do travel to is Switzerland. Yeah,
That is a very very different place from
yeah,
Florida.
that's the first time I see snow too.
Oh my god.
Right,
Yeah.
it was a work trip, and I had some days free, and they
Mm.
were the first days I landed.
Mm.
I land, and I'm a skateboarder, right? At least in high school I was, and I wanted to snowboard forever. So those are the days that I was like, all right, well, then I'm here. First time seeing snow. Want to snowboard? I picked
Mhm.
it up really quick. I think I'm pretty quick at picking things up, and
Yeah.
I pick it up. I'm snowboarding. I take the ski lift up, and I share the seat with someone who instructs. He's
Mhm.
a ski instructor, and
Nice.
he was surprised to hear that this was my first time snowboarding. You can imagine like the look on his face when I told him, I was like, "Yeah, not only that, like we're at the lift and we're looking out like this mountain, just lifting up in the mountain, just snow, beautiful everywhere." It's like, "Yeah, this is my first day I've seen snow." Like you got a fucking mind fuck out of
Oh
that.
my god, that is hilarious. Hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah, I've
gosh.
actually also never. We're going to play the game of nevers.
Sure.
I've never caught a fish my entire life. Never caught a fish.
Wow.
So, especially being in Florida, people raise their eyebrows at that. A lot of people look at like, I need to talk to your parents. I was like, yeah, you should talk to them. Yeah, and up until I was
Okay.
25, I've never drank as
Mm.
well. Yep, it was my first time drinking at 25. And even then, it's still a handful of times I drink.
Yeah.
Just not a fan of the taste, really. It's weird that we all try to chug something that we then want to violently puke up immediately.
That's a valid point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did, like, I'm curious, like, what was it about, like, the way you were raised or how you grew up that like kind of led to this more uh it's like conservative or more like restrictive kind of mentality? Because it's you're in meeting you and the energy that I've had with you, even just you're being on this podcast, you are so vibrant and so open, so exploratory of, and you embrace life in such a vivid way. Like, what was it for you if it wasn't religion? Like, what was it that was kind of keeping you from just uh, expressing that part of yourself earlier?
Yeah, I mean, circle back it again, and I hate to kind of harp on her. I mean, it's not really fair for her, but it was
Hmm.
just the mix between me and her. My ex, she, yeah, there's a lot of things I wish I would have done that if it weren't for her, I would have done. And it was really that, it comes first full circle to that. I like to tell people, I have a kid as well, 3-year old,
Mhm.
and I love him greatly. But when he grows up, I'm going to tell him, and I tell other people to tell their kids. Number one, don't have kids with people that you don't want to spend the rest of your life with. And if I was honest
Mhm.
with myself, which is another thing I like to tell people, be honest with themselves. If
Mhm.
I was honest with myself, I didn't want to spend the rest of my life with her, and I made that mistake. Not to
Mhm.
say my kid was a mistake. It's one of those catch 22 paradox things,
Right.
but you know, um, yeah, I mean that mixed with I had this like my Achilles heel was guilt. I if someone were to perceive me as any way like a creep,
Mhm.
just a bad dude, like I was quick to kind of dispel that. Like, no, like
Mhm.
I wanted to be a good person, and
Right.
because of that, people were able to guilt me very hard to do things that
Mhm.
I didn't want to do. And you know i I'm free now, like those shells off, and like no one's guilting me. If I feel guilted in a way that doesn't feel natural, like I'm the first to, just, you know no matter how I come across, I can't make everyone like me, but I'm
Yeah.
honest with myself and other people now a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, being honest with myself, maybe that's a better, like, more direct way to say it. I wasn't honest with myself. I wasn't, there's questions that I would run from. I would lie to myself and accept those answers. And it, you know up until a couple years ago, um I there's a book I read. I don't know if you've ever read it, The Art of Not Giving a Fuck, by
I
Mark
have. Yeah.
Manson.
Mark
Yep.
Manson. Yeah.
Yep, I read that a few times. I've also read his second book, Everything is Fucked. And man, like, just that book also was really
Mhm.
a transformative time. Like, it really allowed me to kind of analyze the fucks that I give, why I give the fucks I give, what I
Mhm.
truly give a fuck about. And it really allowed me to, like, anytime in my head I feel uncomfortable, there's usually like a reason that I need to sit back, analyze it, figure out why I'm uncomfortable, and really like charge in full head. Where previously people
Mhm.
like to, and even myself would like just like run from it. I'll just leave it there.
Mhm.
Like my ex would be that case where like, we live together, we share bills, we have a kid, we're just, this is
Yeah.
where we're at. It's like, I'm not gonna, not gonna look at that. And
Mhm.
yeah, it just, yeah, I like to tell people and to be honest with themselves, be honest with me. Like, I value that a lot in friendships too. Like, I
Yeah.
know sometimes I rub people the wrong way, or my sense of humor sometimes can be a little dark. It is very dark sometimes, and I love that part of it. And
Mhm.
sometimes I'm very vocal about it because some people really fucking find it funny, but some people don't.
Right.
And it was, I don't know, I'm having a brain fog moment, but yeah. uh, be yourself, as essentially what it comes down. Be yourself, be honest with yourself, and I found
Yeah.
myself doing that a lot after reading that book.
Yeah. Well, so are there any ways that you kind of practice like continually like checking in with yourself and being honest and like having that kind of clarity? Because I think that's hard for a lot of people to really be able to take like an inventory of their life or look at the things that we don't want to look at and be honest. Like, what are the things that like kind of help you maintain that consistently without kind of falling back into lying to yourself?
Yeah, so I'm once you dig yourself a hole in life, right? There's a lot of digging out. I've dug myself out now, right? So now I'm kind of like floating now, enjoying myself, but I still am victim to kind of in the moment, uh just running from something uncomfortable. Like, sometimes events happen that are just so, like, they're so unbelievable to me. It's just so
Mm-hmm.
unreal that I will sometimes just shut them out and try to convince myself that that didn't just happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it comes to life, I wouldn't say, I would say just honesty is just a big, it's kind of like the bar to kind of raise everything against,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you're referring to. If it's dealing with someone else, is that person being honest? Are you being honest? Is there some kind of ulterior motives that either one of you have in this relationship? I try to look at that from perspective. Honesty is one thing that I find really, you know, it's up there, right? Like
Yeah.
I like to tell people, like, how cool would it be, or how weird would it be to live your entire life with a GoPro mount on the top of your head and it was live streaming your entire life? Your entire life was live streamed. Every job offer, negotiation, every just it, there would be no such thing as private, you know, behind the scenes talk with someone else, behind the scenes chatter. Everything would be open and honest at all times with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to live my life according to that, right? Like I try not to dig myself into a situation where I have to lie to get out of it. You know, honesty is how I like to guide myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still have trouble though, kind of in the moment being honest with myself. Sometimes I like to tell myself now that I use my emotions as a metal detector. Basically, anytime my emotions kind of just like freak out and like I can't control them,
Mm-hmm.
I'll take a deep breath and just, why did I just freak out? Why did I freak out? What's going on here? You know, just to deep breath, think about, figure out what's going on. And I'm still not the best of it. A lot of times, like, it's weird how it happens. Like I'll like mm, I don't know if I necessarily want to kind of share too much.
I mean, I'd love it if you would.
Yeah, no, it's just yeah, I probably shouldn't. But yeah, yeah. Long story
Yeah.
short, yeah, things happen in life that just even I can't control it at times. It's hard,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah. No, I
emotions
get you.
emotions are something that I try to control. And it's something I value in other people too, when they're able to control their emotions and speak their
Mm-hmm.
truth. Like if they
Yeah.
feel uncomfortable, if they feel a certain way, it just whatever, however they feel comes out their mouth, right?
Mm.
Like I love it when people do that, and it allows me to do the same right back at them. And yeah,
Yeah. No, I feel yeah. I think the like being able to listen to our emotions. I like that analogy of it as a metal detector of like, hey, because I feel like that's something as I've become more emotionally aware with emotional intelligence or through meditation or through various like techniques that I've learned where, you know, and I think this is something that comes with for me for anger a lot, right? It's like I used to really like hate being angry and I didn't want to be angry. I would even lie to myself and tell myself I wasn't angry about things that I was angry about. And now I've gotten to a place where not that I am extreme, like I can play a video game and just want to like throw and break everything in my house at the wrong time, but like, you know, also being able to be like kind of like love my anger. And that sounds maybe kind of weird or woo to some people, but like literally being like, oh, like my anger is literally like a barometer for me being like, oh, like I had a boundary that was crossed, right? Like
yeah,
I had something that was going wrong. And it might not be something that I even communicated, right? And that's like another thing too, right? It's like I would maybe have a lot of anger at somebody that they're crossing a boundary that I've set that I haven't communicated to them. Like I haven't told them, like, hey, this like really bothers me. Like, so please don't do that. And I was actually thinking about this today. Like, I might even have some challenges around, like, I don't know if this is for you, but like for me, if and I don't know where it was from school or what, but like if I got angry, I felt like that made people be able to pick on me more because they could see the fact that I was hurt or upset, right? And
true.
so some
Yeah,
part of myself was like, if I'm not going to let people see that I'm angry because if they see that, then I'm more vulnerable and they're going to keep picking at it. Whereas like, which is kind of what happens when you're a kid, and some adults will still do it too. But like as an adult, right, you start to like learn like respect people a bit more. So like learning to be able to like, hey, I can express this boundary or this need that I have, and people will expect or respect. And if they don't, I'm not gonna be in that relationship. Like I don't have to have some be in a place where somebody's going to keep hurting me, whether it's physically or emotionally. And so I really like the idea of the metal detector because it's like, yeah, you can kind of like feel those things with different people, right? It's like, and there's almost like a magnetism aspect too, right? Like the synchronicity and like for larger context. So Paul and I met at Okeechobee Festival Music Festival in 2022. So this was last year at this point, and this is a music festival in Okeechobee, Florida, which is kind of like triangulated between Tampa, Orlando, and Miami. And it's this like there's no really no other people out there. If you just try to get an Uber out there in the middle, you might wait for like an extra hour and a half because there's no Ubers like, in the area normally unless there's a music festival going on. And Paul and I just met, I think, on the first night as we were going in, and it was his first time doing Molly. I was gonna do some mushrooms that night, and I just saw him like really take off, and we just kind of had this really cool moment and talked a lot and like really kind of connected while we were there, exchanged Instagrams, etc. And then full year goes by for both of us. We both had really incredible years of our lives, and neither of us know that we're both going to Okeechobee. I didn't know you were going there, and
It was so
we are
fucking cool to see you there too. Like the moment I saw you first, and you kind of
yeah.
came up and was just real friendly. I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." It's like you don't remember me. And the
Yeah.
moment you said that, I was like, "Ah!"
I know. Well,
That
that's
felt good.
I knew it because like when I went to Okeechobee, I hadn't shaved my head yet, right? I didn't really have like this full beard
Yeah,
thing like
yeah,
you. I look more like you now, if anything.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and I could tell I was like he hadn't quite recognized it because I feel like if he knew what it was, and I've had those moments too where like it takes me like 5 seconds for my brain to like orient and be like, oh shit, and those moments are my favorite. And so I was I was dancing my ass off in the front row of Ella's Dream, and I turned to my left, and Paul was just having this great time. And then we connected. And yeah, to Paul's point, I asked him, after we first lock eyes, I was just like, "Hey, do you remember me?" And he looks at me for a bit. He's just like, "Holy shit, Cameron!" And those moments are just those are some of my favorite moments, man. Just like
Yeah,
those random encounters that you just see somebody again out of nowhere, and I feel like you're always drawn to those same people. I don't know what it is about it. There's something magnetic about it that's special.
yeah. It kind of goes back to just having fun, right? Like I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I definitely do have fun out there, and people see it, and people are drawn to it, and
Mm-hmm.
likewise with you. Like again, I thought you were a stranger. Like when I'm out there, I'm just like I'm in that mode.
Yeah.
Like I don't know anyone, but I know everyone, and
Yeah.
it was in that. It was like, hey, how's it going? And it was you had to knock me out. It was like, hey, wake up, wake up. It's like, oh yeah, hey. I was like-
Yeah, no, I feel yeah. I love that analogy. I think it's a great way of expressing it. Like when you're really in that moment, it's like you are surrounded by strangers, but you're also surrounded by your best friends at that
Yeah,
time. And I think that was one of my biggest lessons from that past year was, it's like it's cliche, but it's like wherever I went, like that was home, right? It was like learning that, like that I belonged wherever I was,
yeah.
rather than kind of seeking some place to belong.
Yeah, I find there's like something about being out there too. Like when I'm out there, I like to practice or really kind of push myself to be comfortable around other people and try to be myself. And I get really good when when we're at like a camping festival and I'm able to just really kind of hone in. I really feel like I melt into that, and I'll ride that wave a little bit even after I'm outside of the festival. Like I find
Mm-hmm.
myself being able to like hit on women easier or just talk to
Mm-hmm.
people easier. Like I walk with my head up, and if
Mm-hmm.
someone's like glances at eyes with me, like I'm like I look back at them and just smile, like, "Hey, how's it going?"
Yeah.
Like as opposed to just like, "Oh, you're in your world, I'm in mine," just like
Mm-hmm.
you know, I love that part out there, and that's yeah. That's
Yeah.
a large part of the why I like to go out there is the people, the interactions. Although I also do love the music. I love them both. It's hard to pick one, but yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel you. Like I feel like it really is a thing where it's like you go initially in a way for the music, right? You're drawn to like, oh, this experience or this whatever this wild time is, and then by the end of it, you're like, it's the people that like for me that keep coming back. Like um, I went to Shambhala, which if you want to come this year, I'd love to have you. It's in Canada, and that's a very special festival. They don't allow any alcohol in whatsoever. So they'll like strip search your car for alcohol, like very hardcore about this.
Hmm,
And the vibe there is like nothing I've ever experienced. Like I love Oki, I love all these wonderful festivals, but like if you want a festival that's like pure awesome vibe, like they don't have the best production of everything. They don't have all these, a lot of the things that you can see, maybe like Electric Forest or EDC. But you want to talk about like vibe and people and the
interesting.
magic in that end, there's nothing like it.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that offline because that'll be a special thing.
All right.
Um, actually have a DJ that I met there, she was my first interview. We got to redo the interview because there just had some sound quality stuff, but she's an awesome human being, and that's yeah, it's a really really cool space. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so talk to me about, so one of the things that you described earlier before we were getting on the podcast was you like to kind of mess around with some of your software stuff and have a good time because you've kind of created that you're very good at your job, and so you kind of have a lot of maybe a little bit more leeway than some other people would have. And yeah, you said you kind of like to have
Yeah.
some shenanigans in that spot.
Yeah. So like I said, up until a year and a half ago, I started learning to love to dance. And I
Mm-hmm.
listen to heavy stuff. I pointed out this mirror that I like to dance in front of all the time, but I'll turn on music and I understand, or not understand is the right word. I remember, like I pay attention a lot to the small details in music, like the small little boings that happen, just
Mm-hmm.
all those small little things. And I remember them easily. So back when I'm able to play the song, I'm able to really move my body in ways that like I can really kind of convey like the energy, the idea, the emotion sometimes depending on the music. Especially with there's one band I like to listen to called Wage War. It's a little bit heavier, but the lyrics are so raw. Like they're like you could tell the person that wrote them just was bleeding on the tracks. And
Mm-hmm.
I like to just look myself in the mirror, stare at myself, scream the fucking lyrics, feel it, sometimes even cry, depending on like what's being said. I'm able to like jump into the journey with them. And I I've always when I'm doing that, I'm always thinking in my head like that's what I like. I think that's what people like too, right? Like people like to people like to go on TikTok and watch people, dance to music. But ultimately, like again, to circle back, people like to see other people having fun. And if you're having a lot of fun, people definitely want to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And mixing that with things that I've seen online, kind of this thought went off in my head. Are you familiar with uh, Christmas lights being synchronized music? Have you heard of that
Yeah,
idea?
yeah, I've
Yep.
seen that. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So you see people doing it with like like Metallica songs. You'll see like the house go dun 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 dun
Right.
dun dun dun, just freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
You look at that and it's clearly synced, right? Like someone
Mm-hmm.
took time to orchestrate that production, right?
Right.
Doing that live though would take some time, right? Like I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
can't really do something like that live, except
Yeah.
I think you can. And what I mean by that is, so I'm going to be getting into the moment I'm done remodeling this house, which
Mm-hmm.
will be soon. I'm going to be getting into cosplay stuff, building suits, sewing. I want to build. Um, are you familiar with drum pads? They're
Oh yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Yep. So, are you familiar with the protocol MIDI?
I am not, but you can explain both those things
Sure.
for audience that maybe
Yep.
doesn't know.
So MIDI is a standard for sending musical notes over the wire. Like you can think of a keyboard, every single key, how hard you press the key.
Mhm.
And there's a bunch of other little things that have to do with the note, but it's a way to send a keyboard and everything that's being pressed over to a synth machine.
Mhm.
So they'll take the MIDI input, and then that box will produce like an organ sound or like a dubstep
Mm.
sound, or like that's how
Right.
some keyboards are just MIDI only, right? They don't do the synth. They'll just
Mhm.
output MIDI into these boxes.
Got it.
But MIDI is the key here, and I want to build a glove that has um, uh, I forgot what they're called, but they basically allow you to tap your fingers or tap anything. You
Like
tap it at
sensors
all.
or triggers or.
Yeah, they're little triggers, but you can embed them in clothing. My idea is to
Mm.
have a glove that I drum all the time, right? Like I said, I'm a drummer. I'm drumming like crazy all the time. And
Mhm.
if I were to somehow able to get my fingers expressed out somewhere where people can see them, like I could control the bass, the
Mm.
mids, the snare, the crash, all that stuff. I'd be able to control all those with my finger, and also the sensitivity, like how hard you press them. Like if something
Mm.
big comes in, like I can just go, dun, 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 dun.
Mhm.
That you'll be able to, if people can see what I'm doing with my hands in a bigger, like bigger way, like it would definitely, it'd be something, right? It'd be something
Yeah.
worth showing. And I want to, my end game is, and I like to tell people, you'll recognize me at some point. Maybe not recognize me, but you'll know my name. Remember Paul, because you're going to see something online that's going to go viral. And when it goes viral, there's going to be a bunch of products behind it that, I'm going to ride that wave of viral, whatever,
Hmm.
and sell these to people. What
Yeah.
it's going to be is a MIDI glove for you to be able to control what is essentially a light costume. The different
Ah.
costumes, the different lights that go on. If there's one finger going on, it's one color. Maybe
Hmm.
I can control like how one finger behaves one way. Maybe have two MIDI gloves to where I can control like different scenes. Like
Mm.
if I put two fingers down, now when I'm drumming, it does things slightly different, but still controlled in the same way, and I can really
Mm.
kind of just start really playing with it.
Yeah.
And the idea is to have that protocol transmitted out into a wearable suit that is uh, that's plug and play, meaning I can build a
Mm.
larger suit. People can develop their own parts that plug and play into it, and kind of join the festivities. And my plan at some point is to have one hand controlling the music, maybe listening to a song that I love, like
Mm.
where our band like Sullivan King or something, where I know
Mm.
all those little intricacies. And
Hmm.
can you imagine the number of like minds that would be blown to see. Here, hold on, let me circle back. So you got a glove and it's remotely controlling a suit. And again,
Hmm.
I can do all this your Raspberry Pi, ESP32 stuff where I can kind of get all these working over, not over Bluetooth, but over that same frequency that those FPV drones go, where you need
Okay.
real fast, response time and a lot of data going back and forth.
Hmm.
If I was able to control not just my suit, but a set of suits,
Mm.
right, remotely, and I got like 10 or 20 people deep at a festival, all in random spots in the crowd, all being controlled with my hand with the music that's going on, that's to a T, going just to it, like
Hmm.
I think that might steal a show. Like maybe we get kicked out because like yeah, like yeah, when
But
that
you
happens,
definitely have a lot of artists wanting to use it, right? Like I can imagine once
yep.
people like see that, they'd be like, "Oh, I would use this kind of thing on stage," and like
Yeah,
make
yeah.
things go crazier. And yeah,
I've been thinking about it from a consumer perspective, just me wanting to do things, and also from a more
yeah.
from more business side where maybe people are doing plays or that kind of thing.
Hmm.
There'll be something there, but you want to start off prototyping them on some stuff that I mainly make. It'll probably be expensive and low scale to begin with because I want to be doing
Hmm.
everything myself. But the moment things kind of go off, I'll try to figure out what's going on from there. But this is my I've been talking about it for a while, and people probably think I'm talking shit, but 5 years down the road, I'm going to come back to them like, dude, I wasn't fucking around. Like you may see me, you may see me like remodel my house and doing tile and shit, but like I didn't lose sight. Like
Yeah.
like I love to do this. I love to dance. I love to perform. I love my music. Like I fucking love this, and I'm going to fucking do it.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm working towards. I got some electronics here. You can't see them, but I got an LED strip here, for example. I started working on uh, the protocol to interact with those lights, and yeah, I put it on pause so where I can remodel my house because
Hmm.
I, you know, I you know, my ex left and my house is free, and I took the opportunity to kind of rip up all the tile, put down new tile. Going to be redoing the kitchen, stuff like that, and
Yeah.
I hope to eventually have shows at my house, right?
That's
Like with these
awesome.
lights, and just turn a little. You want to come over to Paul's house for a little mini festival, a little mini rave, like yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's definitely where we'd have to do. I guess the next podcast episode is in your new house at your home rave. That would be pretty freaking dope.
yeah.
Um. All right, man. Well. Oh, that was one thing I wanted to ask you. You had kind of talked on this earlier, so I'm gonna like, maybe circle back a little bit. But you had
Mhm.
talked about like, and I agree with you. Like when you're at a festival, um, like there's that period afterwards. There is like, hey, you can bring a lot of that energy in, and I know for myself that like I feel like every festival I go to, every show I go to, I get a little bit better of like not just having to integrate like a little bit, but like where it's really more sustained of like who I am, because I do feel like that's who I am. And then there's this like it's just not practiced, right? It's not there, and it's not quite as comfortable in this real world, or in the real world in quotes, because in in a festival it's like everybody's greeting you back with eyes. Where out here you might greet somebody and you get two or three people that are just like maybe glance at you or don't say anything back, or somebody who feels weird about getting a compliment or whatever, and you're like, I'm just saying your shirt looks nice. It's not
Yeah,
that big
yeah,
of a
yeah.
deal. So like how do you kind of like intentionally go about making sure that I want to say the festival experience isn't just a festival experience, but really is kind of part of your life moving forward?
Yeah, how do I maintain that? I mean, I definitely have to be with friends of like-minded people to kind of
Mm,
keep that energy going, because I do find that like once you get back in the real world and everyone now is back to who they are, I slowly start to get back onto their level, and it's
mm,
hard to kind of poke my head up and really be myself without being around other people that allow that to
mm.
happen.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I mean,
so
how
friend
I
groups are really important.
what's that again?
Like friend groups are, it sounds like, are really
Yeah,
important to be able to maintain that.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I can't really. I do wind up always losing it.
Mm,
It's hard to maintain it. Um, yeah, I can't really say, other than, being honest, keeping your center, speaking the truth out your mouth at all times. Um, if you find yourself, like, if your metal detector is going off, like if you find yourself talking with someone, but for some reason, like either you feel maybe intimidated, maybe it's a good looking girl, there's just like this weird, like, you're like, oh, just kind of like don't make eye contact or something, like that will kind of cue me off, and I'll kind of take a deep breath and be like, why am I just, they're cool, we're cool. We've all both got stories to tell. We're both fun, like, why are you behaving that way? And
mm,
it's yeah, maybe that metal detector idea is like is the best example I have for trying to find that center, that comfortable center.
yeah.
I got a lot better at it, even at Oki. Yeah, I was resonating with what you were saying though. Like, the first festival I went to was hard, and things got easier and easier and easier. Like the first day at a festival, like the moment I get there, even like we're waiting in line to get in, and I'm already with it. Like I'm already with like-minded
Mhm,
people. We're in line, fucking waiting. We're getting out of the
mhm,
cars. We're fucking passing out rubber duckies. We're fucking in it already.
mhm,
And it's a lot easier. Like I remember there was a time at Oki where I was vibing with this girl, and she made a move real hard, real fast, and I was even rolling at the time where like I should have been more comfortable, but all of a sudden she made a really hard, fast move. Like she started grinding on me like really hard, really quick, like dick to
mhm,
pussy, like, and it happened so quick, so hard that my immediate reaction, other than enjoying the moment I was having with her, I was enjoying
mm,
being with her, was to kind of pull back, right? Like
mm,
she came up to me real fast, and my immediate reaction was like, "Oh, I'm disrespecting this girl. Like I'm
mm,
violating her, even though like she fucking came onto me." And that mindset, right? Like that, like even in the moment, like it's easy to be, hindsight 2020, but when things are happening, and it's
mhm,
quick and it's right then and there, it has been hard, but it's got a lot easier to really ride the vibe and not
mm,
be intimidated by it, or just be yourself. Like you would have liked to hang on to this girl and enjoy her and let her enjoy you, but
mhm,
your mind gets the best of you, and it's hard. I had a lot of work to do in that regard too, because I grew up again closed off, but also I like to tell people a story like of like this time I was absolutely humiliated. It was in
mm,
fifth grade, and I the hottest girl in school came to me and asked me to go on a date, or ask if I could be her boyfriend, or whatever kids do at fifth grade.
mhm.
And my immediate reaction as a kid was still having that mindset, like we're talking about, like no, like
Right.
yeah, like I didn't know how to respond other than just like no,
Mhm,
and when that happened, like afterwards, hindsight's 2020. Why didn't I ride that vibe?
mhm.
I'm not being this introspective at 5 years old, but I'm thinking like, why the fuck did I say that to the hottest girl in
Yeah.
school? I go and talk to her like, hey, listen, about that, I really didn't mean that, and she stopped me dead in her tracks in front of all of her friends and said that was a joke. There was basically what happened was the two hottest girls got together in school and were playing a prank on each other. I don't know if you remember that game where you write a dare on someone's hand, and if they were to
Mm,
read it before the time on top of their hand, they had to do whatever that dare was. The two
mm,
hottest girls got together and figured out who was the most loserest, stupidest, ugliest fucking kid in school to try to tell
mm,
her to go ask that dude to go on a date. And it
mm.
was me. And she said
Oh
that
wow,
like in front of all of her friends, and it was like the most embarrassing fucking moment. And
wow.
there's a few other things like that that happened in my life, but that kind of like mindset is kind of was like deep ingrained, and it took a lot to, and it's there's still a hold of it in me, but it took a while for me to really kind of chip away at that and be more comfortable, be myself. Even maybe I am ugly, which I don't find myself, but just
Hmm.
even if I am ugly, just be yourself, be confident, ride whatever vibes there, and I don't know, it's
Yeah, no, I feel you. Like honestly,
yeah.
I relate a lot to that. Like I have beyond like being very conservative and Christian. Like I had a lot of my dad being a sex offender. Like all of those things, which made sex and relationships very challenging for me. Like I also was very heavy set. Like growing up, like I was fat and I was really insecure about that, and never didn't get a lot of attention from women, like all those kinds of things. And I remember being, ironically, in fifth grade, and I didn't quite have that same level of like humiliation experience, but I was like talking, and there was like some like weird little kid thing where it was like somebody found like some weird note on the ground, and so you start making up a story about it or whatever, and it had like Cameron and somebody else or something on it, and we were gonna okay, we'll share everybody like it was like me and these two girls and the other guy who was like at our desks, and I tell them that I was like, okay, we're gonna share like all the people that we know who like have crushes on different people, right? And so we're like, and she just goes like, I don't know anybody who's ever had a crush on you, and it was just like devastating to me as a fifth grader. And when I played it off as if like nothing happened, but like internally it was
Did, man.
so heart wrenching. And to your point, like I think a lot of that same stuff has like played into my own psyche a lot, or like the idea of like, you had mentioned like, oh, I'm like, I don't want to be like violating her or whatever, even though she's like coming on to you. And that's totally been a thing for me where I've been so hesitant or so afraid or so whatever, versus like you said, kind of like being able to be like comfortable and like riding the vibe and just take a fucking breath
Yeah.
and allow things to happen. And I can say like I had my first really awesome experience with this chick recently at a rave, who like we just started talking. I guess I was like, I'm just gonna fucking talk to her because I want to talk to her. Like all the voices in my head, whatever. I'm just gonna go talk to her. Talk to her. She like bounces away after a little bit. See her again. Go talk to her. And then we just like danced like the entire night together. She's like dropping me off, and she's like, "Can I kiss you?" And she's asking me. I was like, "Hell yeah,"
Oh, yeah. I
And it
love
was
that.
just like,
Women generally are, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
no, no, go.
women generally aren't the type to like they're really scared. Like they're
Hmm.
always really scared. Really, it's the man that has to make a move, but it's really refreshing to hear a woman make the move. I'm sorry.
Dude,
Yeah.
I am 100% the same way, dude. I like totally dig it. Like I'm scared so often. So it's like the fact like and it makes me feel really comfortable. Like I really enjoy when a woman has like very clear strong boundaries and like when she expresses herself that way, cuz I'm just like, "Oh, no, I can kind of like relax and feel like I'm not worried about offending you or hurting you or like those
Yeah.
kinds of things. I can trust you, and I can also trust that like if you're gonna if you're gonna tell me no, like I can really trust that. Or if you're gonna tell me yes, I'm gonna really trust that. And like for me, that's really important.
Or that
Uh,
if you're my thing too is like when you're in that phase where like there's just new uncharted ground you're trying to cover with her to kind of just get close with her,
mhm.
there's that weirdness there that in my head and maybe in your head because of the things that you went to are very similar to mine. I just anytime there's like ground covered, I feel like a creep, right? Like I feel
Mm.
like just like like I'm just like I don't know. I'm in my head often,
Yeah,
and it's nice when you finally meet someone that you're able to feel comfortable with and make ground in that uncharted territory and not feel like a creep. And
yeah, no, I
yeah,
agree. I mean, that was honestly a bigger lesson that I learned from the rave community as well. Was like, I remember because I don't know if you were, but I was exposed to a lot of like pickup artist community kind of stuff, or like those kinds of ideas, like the game and those kinds of things. And so like there was a lot of that idea, right? Is like if you see a hot girl, you have to go talk to her. And it was like always like a thing, right? And it's like you said, like if you're the guy, you're supposed to be the one to go like make the move or whatever that might be. And I remember very vividly, like I don't remember what rave, but I was at a rave and I just saw this like, super hot girl like a couple steps ahead of me, and she was like super hot, and I was like checking her out and like just dancing by myself, and I was like, there's a back and forth voice in my head of like, you got to go talk to her, like if you don't, like you're a wimp, like just all this story. And I remember like at one point I was like, I don't want to, like I don't actually feel safe to talk to her. And like it was something that struck me in my head, is like no one ever tells guys that like you should feel safe. And I don't mean like you should, like that I should have been feeling safe, but what I mean is like that no one asks us like, do I feel safe? And like checking in with, and it's okay to feel safe, and it's okay to, if you don't feel safe, to not do something. And like that permission for me to just be like, I don't feel safe to do this in this moment, so I'm not going to do that, like allowed and opened up so much more for me, rather than feeling like I had to go and like do this, and if I wasn't, I was bad. It was like, no, do I feel safe? And if I don't feel safe, I'm not going to do something. And like it's about my own boundaries and my own care. It's not just about like
Yeah.
me being the person that has to go do things. It's like, no, I have boundaries and feelings and sensitivities and emotions and pains and all this stuff too. Like I'm a human being. And if that means I get different types of partners than other people get, then fine. Like I'd rather have that than like try to force myself to again be somebody that I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah, there was one interaction that I fucking always find it hilarious was so I was out there dancing and I believe I was listening to Sullivan King at the time, and when I'm in that mode dancing, like I'm like blinders on, I'm not paying attention to anyone, I'm in my own world, but I find myself occasionally when I'm looking up, like I'm putting on a show, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
everywhere I look, there's eyes on me, and
Mm-hmm.
you know I feed off that a little bit. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a performer at heart. I grew up playing guitar in front of my
Yeah.
friends, and like they enjoy watching me play guitar and fucking getting into it, and they felt
Mm-hmm.
it too. And
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy that a little bit. And there's one time I did that, and this girl made eye contact with me, and I I didn't, you know, it was just eye contact at the time, and I looked at her. We made eye contact, and I just kind of danced with her, just kind of like, I was
Mm-hmm.
doing my own thing still, but it looked like she wanted to be a part of a little bit too. So I was like, all right, come on, join in. We'll fucking, do our thing. And the moment I did that, she looked to her partner at the time
Mm-hmm.
and said something, but after she said that, her partner then like heads up, realized that shit's going on, uh, turned around and kind of looked around, and then saw me, and then realized that she was talking about me and whatever
Mm-hmm.
conversation they were having. And then he looked away real quick. And I'm still dancing, vibing, but he's kind of making these weird motions where he's like I'm not looking at you, but oh, just kind of like he's trying to make eye contact with me, look at me, but he's realizing that like I'm watching this entire thing unfold, so I'm like still looking at you guys, like was weird, like what's going on here, and he's still in that mode where he's just kind of like dumbfounded and trying to look at me, and then she walks away from him and then just stares at me. And hindsight is 2020. Like I know what's happening now looking back at it. What happened was,
Right.
like I was supposed to reach out my hand and like, all right, come here. Like it was one of those kind of things. But I didn't realize at the time. Like I just saw this like thing go on, and like that interaction happening, and the girl just then go like move away from him and then stare at me. And like in the moment, like my metal detector got the best of me. I wasn't able to like be myself and like ride that vibe. And it
Mm-hmm.
she got weirded out, I got weirded out, and it was this like thing where now she had just broken up with the dude that she was with, and now she can't go back to him, right? So like then like after everything kind of like fizzled out, they both just kind of walked off in different directions.
Oh
you know
wow.
I just like I was accidentally being myself but just passing out bad vibes and just just like dude, I can't be given like these weapons. I can't be
Mhm.
like I can't be trusted with this shit.
Yeah, no, dude, I feel you. I mean, it's so easy in those moments where there's like no, you're kind of just reading signals, and if there's just kind of a little bit of an off, or somebody's a little bit unsure or whatever, like it's very easy to like get confused or read signs wrong or interpret things like
Yeah.
all of the time. And I've seen that, which is almost like why I've realized in this past festival, like part of why I like being up near the rail is like I find that the people there, generally speaking, um, tend to be like much more open energetically. Like they want the back and forth, the dancing, the switch, the like, like the connection. And that's like a lot of the big part of it that I love too. Like I love dancing on my own, and there's always like a part of me that's like looking around for eye contact, looking for someone to like make a move with, not even necessarily to take somebody home or have sex or like anything like that,
Yeah,
just like
just enjoy.
dance
Yeah.
with for a little
Enjoy the
bit,
people. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and it can be a guy, a girl, trans, it doesn't matter. Just like having fun with different people, like in that energy. And I find like you find a lot more of that kind of almost the closer you are to the front.
Yep.
Not
True
always,
story.
but a lot of the time. Um,
Yeah.
well,
I
Paul.
like to when I'm in that mode and like dancing and trying to just
Mhm,
enjoy the music and not necessarily kind of have these conversations with people with not so many
mhm,
words. I like
yeah,
to wear glasses, big old thick glasses, and I find that to me that's like a power button. Like it's just like an off button. Like, hey, I'm up here listening to music and enjoying myself, and unfortunately, right now I'm only listening to music. And
mhm.
I don't mean pass off any bad vibes, but like I'm off right now.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, yeah. No, I feel you. I'm curious, what's the tattoo on your wrist say?
Oh, it is a. It says it's. Are you familiar with what HTML is?
Yeah, yeah. It's like the back end coding for
Yep.
websites, right?
So basically, it is HTML for this is the end of my arm and this is the start of my hand.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, little
Very cool.
nerd
Very
joke.
cool. Yeah.
The idea of having this was to, someone is out and about and they see that, number one, it's funny, right? It's a play on HTML and start off a conversation, people who
Yeah.
have similar interests.
Yeah, yeah, no, I feel you. I get that.
Yeah.
So, what's next for you? I mean, you know, you're building this light show thing, and you've got that. But any other festivals or big things that you're looking forward to for this next year?
I am going, my next big festival is Forbidden Kingdom.
Hmm.
That's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of heavy artists there. The lineup was just announced recently, and they have one artist that is just if he's there, I'm going. Period. But there's also a bunch of other big headbangers there, and that's Phase One.
Awesome.
Are you familiar with Phase One?
Yep, I've
Yeah,
seen them.
yeah, they are, in my opinion, the perfect blend. Like I started off in two different worlds, right? Like in the metal, listening to like heavy,
Hmm.
crazy breakdowns, just a lot of anger, even,
Hmm.
and in the EDM world, all those kind of fart noises, all those interesting sounds,
Yeah.
and Phase One to me is like the perfect mix between everything I like about both, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'm big fan of him. So yeah, Forbidden Kingdom's coming up. I'm also going to be going to Dance Festopia, which
Awesome.
is also another big headbanger. You know, um,
Yeah, you mentioned that one to me. You said that one was like is super your vibe.
there's a
Um,
one time at a show where I was vibing with this couple, and I was dancing really hard. I go down for a breather in between songs, and she, the girl of this
mhm,
couple, comes up behind me and starts giving me a massage. It's like,
mhm,
okay, well, most people this might cross the boundary, but
mhm,
we're in that vibe, right, where like no one gives a fuck. We're all trying to enjoy ourselves. It is what it is. I don't think anything of it. I get back up, we start dancing. A couple songs go by, I go back, do another breather, and she's back on my back again. But this time, she's not just giving me a massage, but she's like scratching me as if like I'm fucking her, and she's like, "Ugh." She's kind of like, oh, that is not just a massage. There is something
mm,
different going on there, and also kind of weird because your guy's right there.
mhm,
Like I don't know how to handle that part, so
mhm.
I go get up to turn around, give a nice big hug, and it was the guy of the couple that did that. And me riding the wave of that whole thing and digging in and giving a hug.
Yeah.
I was like, if the vibe was right, I could ride this for a little bit.
Hmm.
And yeah, it was interesting.
Nice. Did you end up like hooking up with them or something, or? just
No,
kind of like just that thing. Yeah,
no. I
that
mean,
that
I probably could have if I was able to like calm my mind and really,
right. Just
go back
relax.
to go back to the thing we were talking about where we kind of get caught up in things. But
Yeah, dude.
yeah,
I feel ya. I actually, so that's actually a cool story for me. Is my first Okeechobee last year after Saturday night with Grizz. I was like, what we were walking out of the show, and I see this awesome dude with like a live bear costume, not like a like cuddly bear, like looks like a literal grizzly bear right on his head. I'm like, oh, it's awesome. And this other beautiful blonde woman comes up and starts talking at me and like, oh, I love your hat thing. And she's just like super like me, like I just pester people with questions. Like I love to get to know people and just want to know everything about them. And she was like that with me. It's like, oh, like we're like
nice.
super
Yeah,
vibing, right? And she's like this guy's husband, and like we're just like having a really good time and talking, and I'm talking about her like with her about my story about how I got there. And part of what I didn't share on there was like I got invited from this couple, but I had they were through a website called FetLife, which is like a kinky website for people, like it's a kinky Facebook kind of. And so they were like kind of a couple like looking for initially like another woman to go with them to Base Canyon. So when I'm telling my story to this chick, I was like, yeah, I was like, well, on FetLife, I reached out to these people and they told me I could come with them. And so I went with them. She's like, oh, are you into like kink and like that kind of thing? She's like, yeah. She's like, well, like me and my partner, we're looking for potentially a woman to find like a threesome with, but like I've always really wanted to do it with a guy, da 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 da. And so like she was like, would you be like down? And I was like, yeah, I'd be super down. She's like, okay, let me go like check with him. He ended up like not being down for it, which is totally reasonable, because just met, and I think as guys we tend to be a little bit
yeah.
more insecure compared to women.
Territorial. And, yeah,
Yeah. But like it was just like such a again like another like affirming thing for me where I was like, oh wow. Like I was just like again just myself and expressing these parts, and this chick was just like, oh, you want to have a threesome with us? I was like, oh wow, this is really fucking cool.
yeah. It's
Definitely
funny
a
how
like feather in my cap.
yeah, it's funny how guys are like that. We are really territorial. But me
Hmm.
personally, and maybe you're the same way, and my friends are the same way. I find most people that are plugged into that esoteric vibe we keep referring to, they're not
Hmm.
really. They don't have a lot of ego. They're
Hmm.
usually secure in their relationships to where people could just be themselves and not fear how other people feel. But
Yeah.
I personally don't feel jealousy, and I also personally like the idea. I haven't been with a partner that likes it yet, but I like the idea of seeing the person that I love freak out and have crazy orgasms, crazy
Yeah.
sex with new people. Like I would love to just even watch that and kind of
Yeah.
even yeah, like
Yeah.
it's different. Some people are repelled by that, but like me, I would love to see the person I love that I'm with also enjoy themselves. Like it would get me off too.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's compersion. That's a lot of. There's a lot of people wired like you, and I feel similarly. That's that's, and I'm the same way. Like I don't feel jealousy. Like I will feel, um, I can feel bad about myself if that makes sense. Like if I see somebody like who doesn't want me but wants somebody else, I will feel like that kind of like pain.
True. Yep.
But but if it's somebody, if I know that they're coming back to me and like they don't devalue me or something like that, then it's like I don't care if you're gonna go do something with somebody else, like as long as
Yep.
we're like still together. um
Yep.
so
I
it's
like.
like yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say I
Go ahead.
like to disconnect the two things. I like to, there's someone that you pick that you want to be a life partner with,
Mm.
and that has nothing to do with sexuality or anything, right?
Hmm.
Like, although I mean it does, but not. I mean, just for the
You want
sake
the
of
sex to
argument.
be there. You want the
Yeah,
sex to be there, right?
yeah. You want the definitely want the sex to be there, but when both people realize like, hey, I've committed to you, you're my life partner, and I will be coming back to you, and there's that safety that you
Hmm.
have there. Now we're both free to go out and express ourselves and be with other people and enjoy other people. Like it's different, right? Like you are my life partner, and this is the person that I'm having sex with tonight. But also, I mean, you may come too. Maybe you don't want to, but also like just this is what's
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I feel you. That's a lot of my vibe and what I've been like figuring out and working through in this past year and still continue to. It's been fun though. The more that it's, kind of to your point earlier, the more that I am myself and the more comfortable I get at like being myself and like being willing to like kind of hit low vibe stuff from that and just let it bounce off me. Um, the more I find people who want me, which is
yeah,
kind of ironic, but it's true.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. We are definitely very much similar. 34. I'm 34.
Yeah.
Recently blown up. I feel like we're very similar in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Now, you
Definitely.
mentioned the pickup artist world that you've gotten into. I never really gotten into that world, but I've recently gotten into. Uh, I hate to say it up front, only because it gives off the wrong impression. But
Mm.
the manosphere, like it can get a little
Mm.
bit misogynistic-y
Oh
and
yeah.
kind of like fucking stupid and alpha-y, macho-y. But
Totally.
there's some people out there with some good things to say. There's a lot of guys out there that don't recognize their value and don't
Hmm.
really understand what they have to offer, and there's some people out there that are you know kind of waking people up in that regard,
Yeah. No,
in
I
a
think
way
there's a
that
the manosphere is like it's representative of a need, right? You know,
yeah,
and I just kind of see it the same way as like same reason like gangs function, right? Is because it's all of a sudden you have people who don't have anything, who feel left out of society, who are then given a group and they're given a purpose and they're given value. And unfortunately, you can have people who are not the greatest who are necessarily leading those things, and they can also have certain values that are valuable, right? And I think even like a bigger part of my vision and mission in life is to be a part of that conversation and hopefully like steer it in a with some of those more positive ways, because I think there are certain things where it's like, yeah, like sometimes you need like a straight talking to and those kinds of things, and it's also like, yeah, like this is misogynistic and this is transphobic and this is like not okay and this is like patriarchal Christianity just repackaged under a
yeah,
spirituality, and
exactly. Yeah,
it's
there's
just like
some
this is
people. I hear
yeah.
some people that like I don't know if you're familiar with the Fresh and Fit podcast.
Mm-mm, no.
Yeah, but they are one of those people that like they're in that manosphere and they they're they really don't have a lot of good things to say actually, but
Yeah.
they're in that sphere. Some people listen to them and they like to say often, and I hear it from other people too, that when you're with a girl, you should never cry. Your girl shouldn't be seeing you crying. Like you're supposed to be there. You're supposed to be like the ground on which they
Yeah.
stand, and like you can't be vulnerable. And to me that sounds like I'm the exact opposite. Like I want
Yeah.
a girl that I can fucking cry with. I want her
Yeah,
to see me
dude.
cry, and I think women like that. I think women like vulnerable
Yeah.
people that are in touch with their feelings, not these macho alpha like I'm not crying, you're crying.
Yeah.
Like get the fuck
No.
out of here, you insecure little twat.
Yeah, and the women who don't want that is like, you don't want to, like, I wouldn't want to be with those women either. It's like those women are not emotionally in tune. They're chasing after other shit too, and it's like,
Yep.
yeah, I totally agree. It's like I cry. I'm vulnerable. I'm a human being, and like I'm in a relationship with someone. It means that like I've got to be able to hold space for you and do all those things, and like I need that from a partner, right? Like that word partnership, like that's so to me is so prevalent in what I'm wanting and looking for, and like developing it
Yeah.
with in myself, like how to be my own life partner, which is the first step, as it were.
See,
Um,
we I have a big I have a board that I like put on my to-do task, but on the half of it I got a big text: love yourself. I tell
mhm,
myself that, ever since I've kind of broken out of that mold, that like I the first thing I need to do is be in a relationship with myself, learn to love
mhm.
myself. And there's a lot of things that stem after that, because number
Yeah.
one, when you have so much love for yourself, you then have so much to give to other people.
Mhm.
And number two, it gets you in a better position to where like you don't feel the need, like you feel like you need someone, to where now you're trying to like, all right, who are my options now and who's the best? No, just sit back, relax, enjoy yourself, and just
Yeah.
let the best thing happen. The best thing will come along, and when that happens, it happens, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. Again, you're dating yourself. Like
Mhm.
it's only going to get better from yourself. And
Mhm.
yeah, sounds like
Yeah.
we look the
Yeah.
same, got the same beard, same hair,
Yeah,
fucking
man. I
raving
mean,
parts.
like I told you, there's something about that magnetism, right? Where it's like you just, you know, there's certain people you're drawn to, and there's a reason. Like it's same age, same a lot of the same things and ideas, and way that we're trying to figure out how to live life and be better humans, better men. Um, I think it's a part of it, and you know, I don't know where life's going to take us, but I feel like we'll probably stay in touch, and we'll see still be on this path together, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, definitely. I look forward to us meeting again. Whether we get together like this too, awesome. But yeah,
Yeah,
next festival. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Same, same, same.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
cool, 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 cool. Awesome, Paul. Well, this has been like a super, super amazing, amazing conversation. I'm so glad that we got to do it and we got to run into each other and share yourself. I guess if people want to stay in touch or like follow up with you more, like where can people find out more about you?
Instagram is probably the best. The Paul the Wild, with periods in between them.
Perfect. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Paul. It was an absolute blast, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. See you.